It always felt like unfinished business not having Deadpool proper from the 2016 and 2018 movies meet Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, the well-established one that we've had for years, we grew to love, and had his ending in Logan. Feels like they almost missed each other with Deadpool coming out in 2016 and Logan coming out in 2017. It almost feels like when Ryan Reynolds walked through the door and officially established himself was when Hugh Jackman was on his way out, and it just felt like such a missed opportunity. Something that, although I didn't necessarily want to happen because of how perfectly Logan ended Hugh Jackman's career as Wolverine, something that I still couldn't help but wish that we did have before that happened. And now, better late than never, because we have Deadpool and Wolverine. And don't let the title fool you, I am a Marvel fan. I mainly like DC Comics, I'm more into the DC characters and overall story, but I've been a fan of the MCU for years, and I've just been kind of on the wagon that I'm getting tired of the shit that they're doing. I've been pretty tired of the comedy, all that stuff, putting out projects that nobody seemingly wants. And not that some movies that no one wanted didn't come out great, but I mean corporate spin-offs, things that are just clearly designed to make more money. So getting this crowd-pleasing movie about two characters, two versions of characters that everybody loves, it just feels like home for me as a Marvel fan. Although I know every swinging dick on YouTube already has their review out, this probably isn't going to do as well. I haven't made a Marvel video before. This isn't really my wheelhouse to talk about Marvel stuff. I really enjoyed this movie and I wanted to give my thoughts. And just starting out with the characters, Deadpool I think is just at the top of his game here. What I really appreciate about Deadpool himself as a character is it's something that I think I just find very relatable, is that he's a sad clown. He has a lot of pain and he hides it behind humor. He doesn't take things seriously and doesn't really show how he's really feeling because that's his method of coping. And that's something that you definitely get in this movie. He's very much himself here. He's very much up to his old personality antics. I feel like even though it's been 6 years at this point since Ryan Reynolds has been Deadpool, he slipped right back into the role because Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds are one and the same. You get a good amount of the same kind of emotional beats that you got in the first two Deadpool movies. Deadpool's a character with a lot of heart, and he definitely brings that heart to this movie and wears it on his sleeve. And although not every joke lands, they throw a million at you a minute, so that was just never going to be on the table. I still really enjoyed him. There were a lot of moments that I was definitely laughing a lot. Not very common for me in a Marvel movie anymore. So it was just a great return to form in that way. But it also is just that Ryan Reynolds humor that I think is very funny. Some really deep ass cut jokes that I was surprised the whole audience laughed at, just callbacks, things that are really, really tiny references, things that I think most general audiences wouldn't have gotten. And it's weird that some of this stuff has actually been made mainstream. But to that point, I was just happy that we are getting pretty much this Deadpool at the top of his game against a Wolverine who's at the top of his game despite his character arc. Now, Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine, that was the biggest thing that most people were nervous about. Like I said, although I couldn't help but get excited about him coming back as Wolverine, I love this version of Wolverine. I grew up on the X-Men movies, of course. I was born in 99, so 2000 and on, I've had these X-Men and Wolverine movies my whole life. And I feel like we kind of got a different side to him, although he still very much plays Wolverine in the way that we wanted him. It's not like they recharacterized him entirely or anything. He's a tad bit lighter, but he still has that gravitas. He still has that aggression, kind of those Wolverine tendencies to him. The anger, the fury, which is just so badass and what I've come to really love about the character. And I think ultimately the movie justifies bringing him back, if nothing else, just to scratch that itch of having a movie of these two together and teaming up. This definitely could have been disastrous if it didn't work out. Hugh Jackman just had a perfect ending with Logan. The idea of that being the last time we see this version of the character worked very well for me. And although some of that finality is sacrificed by the existence of this movie, I think it was well worth it to at least have these characters interact. If it was just bringing back Wolverine because they're desperate on money, because they have nothing better to do if they just wanted him in a solo movie or something, I really wouldn't have been all over that. But I think that this concept was something that was just so blatantly obvious had to happen that I'm glad they ended up bringing him back and doing it, because I wouldn't have wanted Ryan Reynolds Deadpool and a different version of Wolverine. I wanted the two most iconic versions of the characters from the Fox X-Men universe to come together, battle it out, have an adventure together, and this movie definitely provided that. Like everybody else, to a certain degree, the cameo shit, they feel like jingling keys often. They don't feel like they actually have any heart or soul to them. And although I'm generally very guilty of being the person in the theater that ends up clapping like a seal whenever they do the jingling keys. They generally never age too well with me or sit too well afterwards because, you know, I just kind of feel played. But I will say it took a great opportunity to give some send-offs to what feels like forgotten versions of characters. I'm not going to go into anything beyond that because I'm not spoiling this. But there were some appearances that were very nice, and they actually played into the story a bit more than I thought they were. I thought it would just be, oh, look at this person, someone pops up, that's it. But we actually got a bit more than that, and they actually tie into the thematic elements of the movie. And speaking of that, the thematic elements, that is where I think this dynamic works best, because both Deadpool and Wolverine are characters that are no stranger to hardships. And like I mentioned earlier, while Deadpool manages his pain through humor and deflection and not taking things too seriously, Wolverine's someone who cuts himself off, kind of just stews, gets angry, drinks, and kind of some of that stuff complements each other. And I think that in different ways, they bring different sides to each other. And throughout the movie, they realize why they work so well as a team. And I really enjoyed that. I definitely appreciated it because it gives the movie a little bit more of a kick besides just big nerd team up, action, cameos. It gives it just a tad bit more, not much. This movie isn't as deep as Logan or anything like that. I don't even really think that it has some of the character richness of the first Deadpool, but it definitely gives that emotional hook that kind of at least leaves you feeling like there's more to the story than Marvel trying to get your paycheck. The movie does have a lot of fun. The movie does have a lot of those character moments. The jingling keys, like I mentioned earlier. But at the center of it, that's not the point of it. It's not about the cameos. It's about these two characters and their dynamic. That's the center of it. That's pretty much what I wanted it to be. I didn't want it to have these big MCU implications. I didn't really need it to be that because I was just very happy with the idea of Deadpool and Wolverine going on an adventure and it being the two versions played by these two great and iconic actors that are friends in real life, so that chemistry translates to the way that they act towards each other in the movie. There's a lot of jokes, a lot of funny moments, and plenty of fight scenes between the two of them that gives you the good stuff, the stuff that you go into a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine looking for, but also kind of provides a little bit more than what you would have expected. I was very excited for this movie no matter what, but like I said, I have my reservations. The MCU hasn't been very good. Wolverine, I kind of battled in my head whether Wolverine should have just stayed dead. I mean, not that they bring back Logan in this movie, obviously. It's a multiversal version, but bringing back Hugh Jackman in and of itself kind of has to a certain degree, undo a bit about what was special about Logan. But in the end, I think that the highs of this movie justify its existence. I'm glad this movie exists, and I'm glad that it was able to pay off nicely some of the things from the Fox universe, some of the Fox Marvel movies that you never would have thought would get paid off. A lot of the Fox Marvel movies kind of become the butt of jokes. Not that they don't have a lot of jokes at the expense of some of the Fox Marvel movies, but they also do pay a good amount of respect to the versions of the characters because that was what we had for years. A lot of people love them, a lot of people grew up on them, and they had some amazing highs throughout the Fox years. They did some things that I don't think the MCU ever would have done. I don't think the MCU ever would have made Logan. I don't think during the 2010s, MCU would have risked making a Deadpool movie. And I think that in and of itself is a lot to celebrate, a lot to appreciate, and this movie definitely does pay that respect. But those are just my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'd love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.